Hi, this is Steve, and I want to welcome you back to the Tech Leader Talk podcast. Are you using digital twins to improve your business? If not, today's interview will help you understand them and show you some ways to get started. Because on this episode, I'm talking with Brenda Discher, who's a Senior Vice President of Business Strategy and Marketing at Siemens Digital Industries Software. She has more than 20 years of business experience and is currently empowering companies of all sizes to create and leverage digital twins that enable a digital enterprise. So during our conversation, Brenda explains why digital twins are important to all companies, especially technology companies. And she also talks about a lot of different situations and industries that have successfully used digital twin technology. And she's worked directly with companies in many of those industries. She shares her thoughts about how this technology can improve the efficiency, optimize product development, and improve manufacturing processes at your business. Brenda also shares her insights regarding the use of digital twins to support sustainability, such as with farming to optimize water and fertilizer usage. So I know you're going to get some great tips. You're going to enjoy this conversation. And with all the different technologies and industries she talks about, I'm sure there's something that's going to resonate with you. So let's get to the interview with Brenda. Hey, Brenda, thanks for joining me today.
Steve, it's a pleasure to be here.
So I gave the audience a little bit of an intro about you and some of the work that you do with Siemens and digital twins that we'll be talking about today. But everybody always wants to know the backstory. What was your journey? How did you kind of get to this area that you're working in today?
Yeah, so as a child, I was fascinated with taking apart toys, mainly my brother's toys, and putting them back together. And so very early on, I guess I knew I was going to be an engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer. And then my parents actually owned a tool and die company, and the company was literally 4 blocks from my high school. And so when I got out of high school, I would walk 4 blocks down to the tool and die company and started learning about manufacturing. And so the combination of the curiosity and the exposure led me on a path of engineering and software and working with digital transformation and kind of anything that I think can improve the world to be more sustainable so that we can do it in the digital world before the real world is fascinates me.
Mm-hmm. It is. Well, yeah, with today's technology, it's becoming ever more popular, what we can model in the digital world. Okay. So tell us a little bit. I know generally, but I certainly don't know what digital twins are to your depth of knowledge. Tell us what digital twins are in case somebody doesn't really have a good definition, and kind of why it's important to you and to the company's work.
Yeah. So at the simplest definition, a digital twin is really a virtual digital representation of something in the physical world.
Okay.
And that can be small scale, like a digital representation of my iPhone, right? There's a digital twin that a company is using in order to modify the design of products that we know that are in our homes everywhere. There's also digital twins of cities. There's digital twins of factories. Mm-hmm. So that we can understand again what are the conditions and the constraints that might affect the performance of the physical thing, and can we do them more and more digitally so that we can capture insights, we can predict conditions, we can optimize outcomes, we can make better decisions on materials. So all these types of things, the more you do something in the digital world with a digital representation, a digital twin, the better you'll be able to figure out the performance and efficiency with less impact to the world in the real world.
Okay. So you mentioned some different industries. I think of digital twins as just being some kind of like your phone, like an electronic device that you're modeling, but mm-hmm. You're talking about cities, factories. Well, I suppose then I've done some work with a lot of autonomous vehicles, and they're trying to model or predict or virtually recreate every potential situation there is, and there's hundreds of thousands, millions. So that's kind of what they're doing here, a digital twin of maybe the vehicle, but its surroundings and the humans that might step out in front.
Exactly. So there was a recent study. It's probably 18 months old now because I've been doing a lot of research in autonomous vehicles actually in my career. So which was in order to perfect an autonomous vehicle of the future, you would need to drive 8 billion miles, which is physically not possible.
Mhm.
Which that's just a staggering statistic to think about. And so what's interesting is with a digital twin of a vehicle, a digital twin of some type of infrastructure, a city, and sensors. So there are sensors. I don't know if you have a newer vehicle, but anybody that has a vehicle that's been manufactured in literally the last decade, so you probably know now that your car has as much software and electronics as it is as actually manufactured or traditional mechanical parts. And what's interesting is all those sensors are collecting data. And so the digital twin in a digital environment, not only can it understand and you can optimize designs and optimize features like where's the mirror going to be and how am I going to understand where my instrument control is going to be, but take it further. If there's sensors in the real world and you have a digital twin, there's this thing called a closed loop digital twin where I actually can make modifications to future iterations of that
Oh,
product, car in this instance, knowing the data I start collecting from around the world from the sensors that are happening all over. And that's going to allow me to cut all that time off of driving 8 billion miles to think about all the things required for autonomous and for the safety of the people, for the performance of the vehicle. And it's completely fascinating how I didn't realize, and I love when I parallel park now and my sensors are going up beep, 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 beep to tell me, exactly where to park. But there's a ton of data getting collected. It's all anonymized. So you and I are safe here, Steve. But the data is going up to the cloud in order to optimize parking and potentially autonomous parking in the future,
mhm.
all because of digital twins and AI and data.
Well, I suppose in some situations, if it's real world data, it could be this particular parking spot, people have trouble because there's a mailbox next to it or something, and they get distorted or they're whatever. They don't get the right angles and they hit the curb or just whatever. So just understanding some of the problematic parking spots and just things like that.
Yeah, so I eventually believe that again, that data will be fed back to city planners,
Yeah.
so that they can understand what's happening at this particular intersection or what's happening in this particular parking lot at this parallel parking spot that is not getting optimized. And so things like utilization, things like optimization, only going out and fixing the parking lot that needs to be fixed because all the others are working just fine. Like
Yeah.
the if you think about the possibilities when you think about the impact of digital twin technology, it becomes it becomes super impactful
Okay.
to all of us, not just anybody that's actually the driver of the car, but it's the person in the seat, etc.
So I assume cities and factories can look at cities could look at vehicle flow, pedestrian flow. Factories could look at worker positioning, worker movements, how
Yep,
they interact
yep,
with the assembly lines or whatever it is they're doing.
yep, yep. In fact, that's
Oh,
the thing I think. Um, One of the things I think that makes Siemens unique is it's the amount of information and the amount of data that you actually can interpret and collect these insights from in order to make the digital twin more predictable of what's happening in the real world. And so in fact, it's what I do as part of my day job, is we acquire a lot of different functional capabilities and that adds more what we call comprehensiveness to the digital twin. So digital twins are not new. 20 years ago, there were digital twins, but they were really representing the mechanical of a product, like the
okay.
form, right? But now with simulation, we've acquired a lot of simulation capabilities. I can now simulate the performance with different materials. I can simulate the airflow, right? And now if we've acquired technology, the sensor technology, which is IoT, that allows you to collect the data to understand the performance out in the field of the vehicle with manufacturing technology. So you can not only is the digital twin becoming more comprehensive in the digital world, like you just kind of alluded to, it allows these predictive models to operate in a digital twin of a city, a digital twin of a factory. Like you can go from it's one digital twin because you actually want the data to the integrity to be in a single model. But the more information I can put in that digital twin
Yeah.
and the more it knows about its environment, the better you get for the predictability and the outcomes.
Okay. So I'm sure there's been a lot of advancement, like you mentioned, in that space in the last 3 to 5 years with AI and just all the new tools. What do you think's coming next? What are the big things you're looking forward to seeing in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so what I think is going to be the cool next thing is leveraging data, leveraging kind of unlimited, let's call it compute power because of the cloud, right?
Hmm.
So there, data is becoming. I'm not running out of data on any of my devices like I did a decade ago, right? So we have kind of unlimited data potential. We have, data. There's AI, so that you can actually collect information about it. You have digital twins. I think people are going to be able to work in immersive digital playgrounds, right? And so
Okay.
think about, I mean, I have children, and my children are gamers, right? They love gamers, and they really love the immersiveness of whatever game
Sure.
they're using, because it looks and feels like I'm actually playing the sport, even though they're civilians. They don't know the sport. They're not an athlete.
Hmm.
A picture, a factory worker of the future. In fact, we actually have a factory manufacturer that we work with called Fryer, which is a startup battery manufacturer. And they are trying to build 20 factories in the next 3 years, which normally a factory itself takes 3 to 5 years to build. They're trying to do 20 because we have to produce batteries because we have an energy crisis, right? We've got to be better at producing batteries. We have to do clean, better battery production, and we have to figure out how to actually improve the world around us as we produce these batteries, which
Yeah.
is somewhat a dirty process. If you think about these technologies, one of the things Fryer is doing is they've actually created what's called the metaverse, the industrial metaverse, big term, but it's literally digital twins with AI, with the cloud compute power in a digital environment where they're able to kind of identify exactly what they want that factory to look like. They can pitch it to investors, which is allowing them actually to produce and get bids and produce these factories and get the manufacturing, everybody to understand the vision and shorten that time to
Sure.
production and shorten that time to factory. So
Interesting.
the digital twin is becoming an enabler in this. I'm calling it the digital metaverse.
Interesting. I mean, I've heard of, yeah, using those type of environments to train employees and to map
Exactly.
out their movements, but I never thought for funding, it's like let your investors step right into the middle of the
Yeah,
factory
they're
and see what it's
using it.
like.
This was an interesting use case. So again, how do I actually do this? And then translate that into, we've got other customers that are again in this digital, they're thinking about, what do I do in this new digital, I call it a digital playground because it's like a game, but
Yeah.
it's actually for businesses. You'll
Interesting.
be able actually to maybe make predictions you can't make today, right? There are some
Hmm.
industries where the product that's produced, satellites, you don't get an opportunity to produce two or three or test them. The cost and the impact on the world means you only can do it one time in the real world. And so in the metaverse with a digital twin, I have the opportunity to actually make mistakes, right? And they're not as costly. I have the
Right.
opportunity to iterate and think about different, and then to show my customer or my supplier or my investor, what are some of these trade-offs, and so they can understand the impacts. It's really a different business model we're enabling.
Interesting. So you talked about this example for the battery factory. This is
Mhm.
in the development cycle.
Yeah,
Where do digital twins fit in a product, in a full product development cycle? Is it throughout the life of it, and that how you're using it changes as the product grows?
absolutely. So we tend to define, and I would say a lot of companies that are spearheading the development of digital twins. We actually talk about the product development, the production environment, and then kind of the operate, right? Where the product's in operation. And to me, a digital twin can span through all of those processes. So again, I can work with the digital twin and understand things way up front in the design of the product or in the production of actually producing it. In the kind of in that middle phase there in the process or manufacturing phase, the digital twin can be used, and I can be designing things and optimizing things in my factory to produce that product through digital means. So I also can actually make improvements to manufacturing, and if done right on with in autonomous factories where we've got edge devices and robotic devices that are in the factory that maybe have data on them, as they're manufacturing, they can send information back to the product design teams that affect the design of the next iteration of the digital twin for the product. So, hey, this material didn't work as expected when this was being produced, or this particular manufacturing process is actually slowing down things or more costly. That can get fed back in to improve product design. And then the third phase, which we call it from design to manufacturing to optimization, is when the product's out in the field. And this is kind of the thing we talked about earlier with like an autonomous vehicle, or once the product's out in the field, the impact the digital twin and data can have and feed that back as well. So it's almost like a big closed loop through all processes.
Yeah, that's interesting. So if there's a listener today, works for a tech company, and maybe they don't know a lot about digital twins, haven't had time to come up for air and think about them, what's probably the most important first thing that somebody would need to be thinking about if they're not really using digital twins yet? Where do they jump in?
Where do they jump in? So I think the basic thing to jump in for a digital twin is in the creating a model of record, right? So just designing something in 3-dimensional in maybe traditional CAD systems, and creating that first model of record, because that then with that thing captured digitally, all the other downstream processes that people have added to the complexity of and the comprehensiveness of a digital twin are then possible. So just starting with a CAD model, which is taking 2D drawings of something and making a 3D model, right? Which is CAD design. That's kind of the most basic digital twin, right? And then if I start to add properties and information into that digital twin, this thing I've designed is actually metal, and this over here is a certain property on the metal, and this particular component is constrained to another feature in this model. If I'm designing something like a table, and the table changes, the legs must change with it because of the structural requirement.
Yeah.
As that additional data gets added, then I can go and do a more advanced type of a digital twin where I'm adding in simulation capabilities in order to simulate different things, different materials, and then more advanced to manufacturing, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if that's I think the most basic way to start.
Okay, no, that's a good a roadmap. Yeah, where to start, and then how you can grow from that initial basic, what you call it, model of record.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Tell us, I know you've got a lot of examples, and there was one that we had communicated about before the call with a company that you've helped called Unlimited Tomorrow. Tell us a little bit about that, what they do, and then how the digital twin system is helping them with their products.
Yeah. So Unlimited Tomorrow is an extremely cool little account for me. So so a young man by the name of, his name is Easton LaChapelle. He was 14 years old when he actually built a fully functioning hand, actually with a bunch of stuff in a shop and some Lego materials. And he really got the attention of an industry that was ripe for transformation when he entered this design in a science fair. And soon after that, he was doing an internship with NASA. He did a TED Talk, and the TED Talk lended to funding on his 18th birthday to start Unlimited Tomorrow. And what he's actually perfected is using digital twins, using additive manufacturing, okay, which is where traditional manufacturing is I take a component and then I remove material in order to create the final component. Additive is, material is added in traditional new types of manufacturing processes. The third type of thing he used is 3D printing, okay? And he figured out a way to create a socket for prosthetics that actually had some sensors on it. And so it kind of understood what the person was doing for mainly limbs, for mainly arms. And then the other piece of technology he used was 3D scanning. And so a lot of people have lost a single limb, and most of us have 2 arms, 2 legs. So there was another limb. And so he figured out a way to send a really simple iPad with 3D scanning software to the homes of the patients. They would scan the good, the physical arm that they had. He would import it in and create a digital twin in a 3D modeling system. He would then understand the manufacturability of it, and he would manufacture it with 3D printing. And he did this at 90% of the cost in like just a couple of weeks. He could actually go from a 3D scan to a 3D printed manufactured prosthetic arm. And so kind of turned an industry where Prosthetics were thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And his market was children who need a new prosthetic every year because they're growing.
Sure.
And so took some very, again, young man who had the idea when he was 14 and then built this company. He's now in his
Mm.
20s. He's still not has many more inventions and innovations to come up with, but used the technology to really design the socket, but then used a bunch of technologies to rethink manufacturing, rethink how do I interact with a customer. And again, very simple off the shelf technologies. He's like the best success story I know of, with such an impact on such an incredible industry, right? And has really changed the lives of children. So it's a pretty incredible story. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, that's a great. It's great to see young people doing things like that, and you think he's only in his 20s. Think how much more he can do through the rest of his
Right.
life, and
So
what
much
other kind of
more.
breakthroughs he's going to have.
Yeah.
It's interesting. What's what you've mentioned kind of some of the results and some of the benefits that people are getting from digital twin. What's the most common with some of the companies that you work with? What's the most common benefit that they receive from kind of a business
Yeah.
perspective?
So most people, it's really a matter of either cost or time to value, right? Those are the
Okay.
two big outcomes. So if I go back to my story of Unlimited Tomorrow, right? There, the biggest benefit of the digital twin that changed that industry, they were a combination of both time and cost, but really the cost, right? It was it 90 because of the use of digital technologies and doing a very different manufacturing process, you in doing everything digital, including the interaction with the customer. He was literally able to deliver something 90% faster to the target customer. So in most cases it's time, and in some markets, it actually is, the benefit comes in cost, because again there are a lot of markets where there is a tremendous amount of product produced in prototypes, clay
Yeah.
modeling, a lot of things where you're producing things, and there's a ton of time and cost that
Yeah.
it takes to do all that, to perfect and engineer. Where again, if it's done digital with a digital twin, the cost benefits are really huge as well. So to me, it's cost and it's time. The third one that's the emerging area is sustainability, right? So
Okay.
there are so many examples of digital twins where you just could not ever fathom this, and it's making an impact on sustainability. I'll give you there's two examples that I can think of. I'll tell them both quick, and maybe it makes
Okay.
sense, right? The one example is a company that we work with. It's called 80 Acres. They're here in North America, and 80 Acres has created a digital twin, of a plant, a digital twin of a factory, a mini little factory, which is the farm, where they actually use, and they've got sensors and IoT, so they know the perfect amount of water, the perfect amount of fertilizer, the perfect amount of daylight, the perfect amount of, so they've created the ultimate perfect factory to produce. They even know how to stress a plant, through the digital twin they've watched with some of the science behind growth. They've
Yeah.
actually learned how to stress a plant, and therefore what else can we do to get it to grow faster. And so they've
Hmm.
figured out a way to actually produce vegetables in these factories, and they're using, the factories are old warehouses that are kind of in the US near cities that are desperate for fresh vegetables, and they're using digital twin technology and sensors and IoT in order to actually farm and create, deliver salad, right? And the food tastes incredible because it's fresh, right? If you think about most vegetables most fruit and vegetables that you or I eat from the grocery store, the time before that has come from a farm to the time it's in the store to the time I get it, weeks have passed, which is why, the shelf life of food, you bring it home, you got a week or two to eat it.
Yeah.
These things, with some of the digital twin technology and the speed and the time to value, they've actually been able to, the sustainability impact, because there's just not enough land for farming, right? And another example kind of goes along farming. I said there were two. It's called Nemo's Garden. This one is, they're actually off the coast of Italy, right? And so what they have done is there's limited land, and the land isn't very fruitful for farming, and so they use digital twins to design these pods that look like giant jellyfish. They're glass pods that are floating in the ocean. They're not on land. They're using the ocean to farm. We got a lot of water. Why don't we figure out a way to get, to use the ocean in a different
Yeah.
way? And these glass pods are tethered to the ocean floor. They're in like 20 feet of water. They look like a jellyfish, right? So that think about this dome, and then they're tethered to the floor. And there's vegetables and fruits growing inside of these things, and the condensation that's getting created is making everything grow. It's a complete natural environment,
Hmm.
very sustainable. And again, they're producing vegetables and fruits, and the divers know exactly when do the fruits get picked, when do I need to replant, when do I maybe need to go in and check on them. Everything is automated with digital twins and sensors, and I can easily kind of farm in a very different environment. So
Wow.
those are two sustainability impacts that I think are pretty cool through the use of digitalization and digital twins.
Okay. Is there also a benefit to quality, or maybe developing quality faster?
Yeah, so to me, the word I hear from customers say time to value was
Okay.
improved because I got a higher quality
Yeah.
product in faster time. So
Faster.
absolutely, yeah. But I hear most of them say, well, there is a quality benefit, especially if again, my manufacturability, right, and things are improved.
Right.
Definitely, I think that's where digital twins started, was the quality payoff, and we've gone so much further now to sustainability, to
Yeah.
really to kind of the time, and then the benefit at the end of the day to the cost to the
Okay.
consumer.
Okay.
So it's pretty
Cool.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't heard of growing stuff in glass
Ocean.
jellyfish in the Mediterranean. That's interesting.
It's amazing what people come up with
Yeah.
these technologies.
What are some of the challenges that are facing digital twin technology today?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I would say the first challenge, or a lot of time what we hear from customers really is data, right? It is actually leveraging the data,
Okay.
and being able to use the data in a way that I actually can get the capture the insights and leverage it in order to transform the way I do business, right? So
Okay.
I think a lot of times um, data becomes an important challenge for a lot of customers. Another one is actually potentially changing my processes, my manufacturing processes. And sometimes a good crisis helps us there. So I will tell you, um, getting people to understand, getting customers to understand, if I change my process and I think differently about data and I digitalize my products, the potential benefits. Unfortunately, there's a good thing from COVID. It taught a lot of us that we had to shift to digital faster than any of us were ready to go there for a lot of things in our
Yeah.
lives. And I would say digitalization, believing in digital, believing that the digital and the mathematics are actually sound, was a positive outcome for a lot of our customers. Because if you have a digital twin of a product, and you are now unable to go into the office, guess what? I can still work on it, collaborate. You and I can be working on a model, because
Sure.
you and I are, continuing to engineer it, even though we're not in the physical space with the physical object, right?
Yeah.
So you now have, you also have the diversity of thought. I can get thought on this potential challenge I'm at. I can go very broad with getting hey, I want to go include 3 other friends of ours that are sitting in another country to help us with the digital twin. So I think there are challenges because it's a process change and it's learning new tools, and about how far do I go in the process, what parts of the process do I digitalize first. Those are always hard things when you pursue any digital transformation
Yeah.
objective. A crisis is always helpful because I think it teaches us to let go of some of those biases. Those are the ones I hear the most.
Okay. All right. We're working on some really interesting things, but the question I always like to ask is, what's the favorite part of your current work? What do you love the most?
The favorite part of my current work. So my favorite part is really is hearing what entrepreneur customers are doing. Like, I'm often in amaze at what they're like. The largest companies in the world use Siemens, right? And so I hear all the time from the largest OEMs in the world, the biggest aerospace companies in the world. Hey, here's what Boeing has recently done with some of our digital twins and digital technology. But the thing that I love is like the unlimited tomorrow story, right? It's when a customer, a really small, does something that I'm just like, you used our technology, and you like the other example that I'll give is this company called Surfloak. Okay, and what's interesting about Surfloak is and they make wave surfing machines. Okay, so that's where the name Surfloak comes from, right? And they used digital twins and digitalization to, I think from their words, it's to create the perfect wave every day. And they say, there are people that are not the best at, surfing. Um, and then there are, actual people who are actually professional, people who actually do professional surfing. And not everybody gets to live on the West Coast or in Hawaii. And even if you are, not every day brings the perfect wave, and not every wave is a perfect wave. And so they wanted to create the perfect wave anywhere, anytime, so that anybody could be a surfer. And so they used IT technology, digital twins. They used some of our automation equipment, our OT equipment. They use some of the PLCs, programmable logical controllers, and valves in the machinery, and they're able to produce using a digital twin the perfect wave, so that anybody in the world can experience, again, something that wasn't possible before, an experience of what the perfect wave is, and learn how to surf. And so to me, it's that kind of a customer where it's like, who would have thought that somebody would use a digital twin to create a wave? And their
Yeah,
wave machines are on a lot of cruise ships. I mean, if you've seen any of the cruise ship commercials where they've got
I
people
have.
surfing, right? Hotels have them now. And to me, I'm just like, like the entrepreneurism of the idea for the impact to our lives, and then the tech, how they implemented the tech, right? It to me, that's the coolest part of what we do. It's unlocking incredible imagination with pretty sophisticated technology to really create an amazing experience for me. And when it's a
Hmm.
smaller entrepreneur company, hats off to them, right? It's
Yeah,
hard to be a
totally.
startup in this world, and I think when they have the courage, they have the curiosity for the business problem, and they have the courage to say, we're going to go out on a limb and trust this technology the biggest companies in the world are using. Magic happens. That's
Yeah.
really cool. That's what kind of wakes me up every day. That's what
Yep.
I love about what I do.
I can imagine
Yeah,
it's very rewarding and nice to help the little guy, or the, like you said, the entrepreneurs
exactly. The entrepreneur.
that
Yeah,
are putting it all on the line
yeah, yeah, yeah,
for this
yeah.
business. That's cool. So what's ahead for you and your team in the coming 12, 18 months?
Yeah. So what's ahead for us is really trying to number one, it's thinking about the power of AI, right? And
Hmm.
and what does that look like in terms of offerings and solutions that we actually make available that are embedded into our traditional digital twin technology. And one of the things we've done is we introduced about a year ago now the evolution of our digital portfolio. We have this now common open platform. We call it Accelerator. It is it's an open digital business platform that has all these digital tools. It is an ecosystem. So a lot of our partners that offer, whether it's cloud computing or high-end graphics like NVIDIA's, the Amazons of the world, et cetera, a lot of partners are participating with us as part of this ecosystem. How do we collectively give this platform to more people,
Okay.
and get more people adopting, kind of digitalization for projects? So for me, ahead would be really making people aware that this platform exists. It exists for the biggest companies in the world, the smallest companies in the world. Um, the data is going to be super powerful in the future for what you'll be able to predict, for what you'll be able to do as what if scenarios.
Hmm.
And then finally, getting people to make the connection between digital twins, the digital playground, the industrial metaverse, and making sustainability real. So sustainability, I think, has been a lot of our businesses, and for me, when I talk to CEOs of my customers, everybody has a sustainability initiative. Everybody has a head of
Sure.
sustainability. But how do I turn it into something that affects top line or bottom line? for the business, right? There's a lot of experimentation going on. To me, I think with this digital platform, with Accelerator, and where we're going is how do we then turn it into something measurable and meaningful for the sustainability issues of the planet. That's kind of the next I'm excited about.
Okay. Sounds interesting. I'll be looking forward to watching as that develops.
About that here.
Yeah, we'll have you back to follow up and see how that's going in a while.
Cool.
So this was great. Love talking with you, Brenda. I learned a lot. I know the listeners did too. If people want to reach out, get in touch with you, or learn more about the digital twin products, platforms, and things at Siemens, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, so I would definitely, connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to talk to anybody. I'm Brenda Discher on LinkedIn. Also, check out Siemens.com. I think there's a whole bunch of stuff up there, and visit the Accelerator Marketplace if you want to see some offerings. Those would be the top 3 things that I would encourage people to go check out.
Okay. And I will get links in the show notes so any of the listeners that want to find it, they just click on that and can get more information. So
yeah.
I know you're busy, and I appreciate your time. This was a fantastic conversation, and I'm excited to keep an eye on what you're doing and watch as
Digital
these
twin.
develop, because
You're
it's
a digital twin ambassador now, right? I can get you a shirt and a hat.
Sure. Okay. I'm official. Okay.
Awesome. No, thank you. This was it's funny. Normally I'm having about something deep in the tech or technology that we're thinking of acquiring, to kind of take it up to the level where you're not necessarily talking to hardcore mechanical engineers every day. This was fun. Thank you.
Good. Yep. Thank you.